Hello, my name is Octavia Gentemann-Schmidt. I'm from Germany, and I'd like to take you again on a journey, this time on the second video of the Comet Bernardinelli-Bernstein. It's a bit of an interesting story, therefore a little structure or overview of the video. I will start with a short overview of information, the changes in addition to video 1. I show you a bit of the origin Oort's cloud, and then I start the interpretation, the astrological view on the path that the comet is taking. I'm going into an interpretation of the first observation, and then on the path in the southern hemisphere, and then on the northern hemisphere of Earth. And short review. To start with the changing of information, this is a copy of the JPL. If you look at the first video, there was trans-Neptunian, now it's a comet. And they added the name Bernardinelli-Bernstein because these two guys were the ones seeing the comet on the photos. We are still in the data between 2014, but now it is expanded to 2021. So no longer to 2018. Now the path is calculated until the recent measures, which is the next change. It's now, the period is now 5.4 million years, and no longer roughly around 400,000. So we are now in a period of 5.4 million years orbit that this guy is taking, that this comet is taking. This is the first real photo of it. It's from Wikipedia, and this is the description that is coming along with the photo, and I highlighted it. If it is a comet, I still say if. It has a sort of coma, but if it, so therefore they say it is a comet, but if it is a comet, it is about 1,000 times more massive than a typical comet. I think it's not the last word said on that, so we may just wait a little while. Nevertheless, say hello, this is the first real photo. The comet is said to come from the Oort's cloud, which is an interesting thing because it is so far hypothetical. There is no real proof that this cloud exists. It's a working theory that seems to fit the observation so far. The Oort's cloud, some of the comets or asteroids come from the asteroid belt, and some come from the Oort's cloud directly. As far as I understand it, a comet is an icy thing. So, in my view, here this little circle is the solar system. If this is what it is, then all of this may be a snowball with the solar system as a hot inner core. So it's an interesting idea that we may be to hell within the snowball and not a snowball chance in hell, to make a little game of words or wordplay. Other additions or correction of the video. I read a lot of articles right now. Some say it's an asteroid, some is a comet, some say it's both. The origin is Oort's cloud, as I said. It seems to have a coma so far, but a low coma. Therefore, they say it may not develop a tail. which means it may be visible only with a medium or larger telescope. It will be visible until 2033 only from the southern hemisphere. The orbit is not really clear, the complete orbit. They are still recalculating, as you saw. I remind you of the enlarged period in years. It is already within the solar system range, so it is in our solar system, so to say, but it has a perpendicular approach, and therefore it is not within the ecliptic. Nevertheless, if you take the range for Neptune, Pluto is not seen here, but if you take the range of Neptune, then you see that it is already within the array of the distance between Neptune and the Sun. I just did this short video. I will start it soon, but just to explain what you see, I highlighted here in blue 2033, it will cross the ecliptic. The ecliptic is where most of the planets are having their path. And minus means it is in the southern hemisphere, plus means it's in the northern hemisphere, so it will cross the ecliptic between 2033 and 2034, or in the first month of 2034. So now I start the short video clip, and you see it's approaching. This is perihelion, and now it's crossing the ecliptic. So all of this is still within the range of our solar system. As you can see, I stopped it at 2046, and it is roughly the interpretation that I'm doing. I calculated the ephemeris until 2049. Unfortunately, so far no software has a path. So I started to check Stellarium, which is a free software. Most of us may have it on our mobile as an app to watch the stars in the sky. But at least at this point in time, it does not have the ephemeris of this comet in it, so I needed to draw it on my own, which means it does not look quite like that. This is the path of Neowise, but I put this image in so you can see these loops. I did not draw in the loops. I just did something like that I marked certain periods or certain positions and put the data on it. The comet's path may show similar loops like this, but whatever you are seeing, it is a rough sketch, and it is based on my software Starlight, which was designed and calculated by Bernadette Brady. It's a fixed star astrology tool. Whatever you are seeing now, please do not concentrate on the planet that you see, like Sun or Moon or Venus, because I needed to take one point in time and then put in the path, so it's not it's not important where you see some of the ecliptic planets in the charts that is coming. The comet is visible from the southern hemisphere, just as I mentioned, until 2033. The perihelion is 2031, still on the southern hemisphere. And just as I said, end of 2033, beginning 2034, the crossing of the ecliptic. This is in Photoshop from Stellarium. And this is where my interpretation starts. When they found the comet for the first time, it was near Phoenix. So the first data they got were the range the comet took around the constellation of Phoenix. And now, as we are talking about it, and now that the news broke, it is here in the Eridanus, the celestial river. Phoenix, as you may know about the name, is a symbol for transformation and cyclical renewal. A phoenix is rising out of the ashes, but before it can rise out of the ashes, it needs to go into flame and die. So it is a change that is necessary and that is occurring. Phoenix is relatively new. It was renamed by a British astronomer that was charting the southern sky at the end of the 18th century. Most of this, what you see here, like for instance octant, is new. It's charted from that astronomer. So therefore, the meaning that it had, that the constellation had, was lost. And in that moments, I cannot give you an interpretation. But Phoenix, even though it was new, is known in the Hindu tradition. It is known in the Arabic tradition and in China as a constellation of cyclical renewal. So the name Phoenix fits. Therefore, I can go on with the interpretation there. Eridanus is the celestial river. It runs from Cetus, the whale, through the feet of Orion on the northern hemisphere into the south. So it is really almost from pole to pole. The southern pole, the south pole, is claimed as the place of the Golden Fleece, where Jason and the Argonauts were traveling to find it. It is said to be the river of life and the source of all water. In Europe, it is a symbol for the Rhine, in the southern hemisphere of the Nile. Originally, I think it was the Nile, because the way in which Eridanus is flowing from north to south is the way that the Nile is flowing. Some say that the Eridanus is made from the tears that those shed that mourned Phaeton when he fell from the sky while coming too close to the sun. So it is also connected with the river where the millstone fell when the tilting of the table took place, which means that this Eridanus is connected with the tilting of the Earth axis, with a huge change in the sky, where something fell that was close to the sun, which then had a lot of changes on Earth occurring afterwards. So we have the comet first time appearing near Phoenix, and then it is in a constellation of the celestial river that is telling a tale about also a time of change. If you now look to the complete path that it is taking, this was the place where it was found, and within the circles you find the last 2 digits of the year. So this was 2014, 18, 21 it is here. This is Eridanus. Here you can see Orion. Here is Cetus. So it is flowing around here. Then it goes down to Hydrus, the small water snake. Hydrus is also a new constellation, but it is the consort of Hydra, the larger constellation. It is here, or you can see it here. So it is then going down to Carina, the dove of Noah, and is then within the constellation of Argo. The astronomer that redrew the southern hemisphere split up Argo into 4 smaller asterisms, but they are all the constellation of Argo. And as you can see, the comet is quite a time within the constellation of Argo. It is either Argo from Jason or the Ark by Noah, where it is the longest time, so to speak. It makes a short visit to the Centaur, which is an interesting thing. Then it reaches, coming from here, or to be precise from here, this here is Argo, this here is the Centaur, and from this path it comes to the crater. Please, I would like to ask you to take note, this is Hydra. And how this looks, this is crater, which is the grail, or the cup. And this constellation, they sit on Hydra. It is said that crater is also an asterism of Hydra, so that crater, the cup, the grail, also belongs to Hydra. And from this on, from this place, it will pass the ecliptic below the constellation of Leo, between Leo and Virgo. Will then travel below the nebula to Bootes, then up to one of the dogs of Bootes, Canis Veneziati, and then to Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, and to Draco. This is quite a journey, my dears. Just for the sake of the Argo, just as I wrote it down, some say it was the vessel of Osiris and Isis. Some say it was Argo. Some say it was Noah's Ark. Some say, the Hindus say it was Vishnu in fish form towed to safety during the great floods that occurred in the Hindu tradition. So it is a constellation that is talking about a cyclical change due to water. And Hydra, the water snake, and the Grail are also very deeply rooted in our tradition in the hemispheres, but I will go into that deeper a little bit. Now, just for the southern hemisphere. Phoenix coming. It comes down to the water snake, the smaller water snake. It also hits the cross of the south. Here the mythology is quite interesting. The cross of the south, the southern cross, belongs to the Centaurs. So it is an asterism of the Centaurs. It is said to have been visible in the northern hemisphere for quite a while. But it went below the horizon around the time where the crucifixion of Jesus took place in Jerusalem. So around 2,000 years ago, around, well, we did not have a zero in year zero, but around the starting of our way to calculate time, the Southern Cross went below the horizon. So by the time of the crucifixion, the cross became invisible. It is quite an interesting story that is connected with that already. So we have the cyclical renewal, we'll have the waters of life, the river of life, that is a reminder of the time where the earth axis tilted, or where Phaeton fell from the sky. Then it comes down to Argo, is the dove, Noah's Ark, is bringing a message. And then it goes to the Centaur. The Centaur has a story of Phobos, Chiron. Phobos had wine, they wanted wine. He said, no, we cannot open it. But they wanted that wine, so they stole it. They opened the bottles, or they opened the the vials. And they got drunken and made so much noise that all thought that a battle was going on. So they went out with their weapons, and this led to the wound of Chiron. So it was a feast. It was consuming too much of stuff that was not well fit in the body. The body was not pleased to have it, or they were not used to it. And this led to the situation of an eternal wound. Chiron was wounded forever, so he needed to adapt to that wound. So this constellation is a reminder that we may need to adapt to circumstances out of our control. Even when they started as a pleasure, something happened and we may need to adapt. It is a story of misunderstanding. It is a story of taking what does not belong to one, what is not given freely, and that causes wounds. In connection with the ark, or Argo, and when we then come to Hydra and the crater, Hydra is said to be the salt water of Tiamat. And if you have heard of Tiamat, Zachariah Sitchin said that Tiamat split in two, and one became earth. In the so far interpretation of Tiamat, it is said the salt water, which is Hydra, had a consort that was sweet water, and they had to split. This was the real split taking place, and with it, the split of heaven and earth took place. So from then on, God separated chaos and order, and the heaven and the soil and the waters were separated. So we are driving on a large vessel, remembrance of a yearly flood of fertility of the Nile, or a huge flood from Noah, or an adventure like Jason, towards a story where the heavens are split, or the waters are split, salt and sweet water mixing or being separated, which is what we are having. We are having sweet water at the North Pole and the South Pole and in the rivers, and we have salt water in the oceans. So we have a journey that is taking place between either forced circumstances or to reach shores or places otherwise unknown. When it crosses Hydra, it goes to crater. Crater is said to be the cup from which Ishtar was drinking, bringing fertility. Or it is said to be Apollo's well. Or it is said to be the beverage of Icarus, so the wine of Dionysus. Dionysus gave Icarus the recipe for wine. Nevertheless, Hydra and the crater are both a remembrance of the fertility of the Nile also, just like the Eridanus River. So we have first crater, then we go to the ecliptic cross here in Leo, which is taking place below the constellation and then below the nebula, the fixed star in the tail of the Leo, of the line. Leo in itself is a very fearful energy as constellation. I'm not talking about the zodiac sign in the horoscope. I'm talking about the constellation in the sky. It's quite fearful. It's rather connected with Sekhmet. The nebula is a fixed star that is asking to see the world differently. It is to be at the edge or at the cusp of the culture or at the mainstream, to not fit into the mainstream, to see the world from a different angle, to be out of step or out of touch with the culture that all the others are in. Therefore, it is also a star about frustration, because one cannot be easily understood. It is a fixed star to have an open mind for understanding differences. So fearful constellation, asking for understanding, because things are no longer that fitting, or people are no longer, or circumstances are no longer mainstream. And then the comet goes to Botus. Botus is the Hunter King, but it also, there is a myth from the Hunter King that fell. And he lost his ability to hunt, but then he brought the plow to humanity. And then he became famous again and worshipped again. Arcturus is the main star of Botus or Boots, and he is, or it is, one of the main stars and one of the oldest stars ever mentioned, along with the Big Dipper. So Arcturus in esoteric tradition is said to be the gateway to any incarnation on Earth. No matter where you come from as a starseed, you have to enter through Arcturus. In the fixed star astrology, it is a star in a constellation that is bridging the cultures from hunting to farming. It is about the new ways of feeding, of a farming culture, and Arcturus is a blessing on any adventure. In the Chinese tradition, here are the 3 honorary guardians. They are the dogs of Boots. And you see, the comet is in there 35, 6, 7 and longer. And in around 40, he enters the constellation of Canes Veneziati. So he still is in the huge constellation of Boots. But he then enters what the Chinese know as the 3 honorary guardians. He then goes on to the Big Dipper area. The Big Dipper is the mother of all life. It is, she is the guardian and the caretaker of all animals, of all life in itself. It is the creation myth of the goddess. And from then on, here is Draco. The comet will then enter the constellation of Draco from our point of view. Draco is an interesting thing also. Draco is a form of pole star. And this was circumpolar. Interestingly enough, it was said to be the snake around the tree in the Garden Eden. And the tree in that matter of issue, the cosmic tree, is the Earth axis. So by the time the Earth axis, the tree of life, was as it once was, Draco was the snake curling around it, around the time of Adam and Eve. So we have quite an interesting story that this comet and the path of the comet is taking. We have the cyclical renewal in Phoenix. We have the dove and the Argo. So we are on a journey, either forced through a flood or as we wanted, because we want to get some treasures or to reach new shores. We have Eridanus, the sweet water. We have Hydra, the salt water, Tiamat. Then it crosses the ecliptic. So it is in the southern part of Eridanus, just to mention it again. When it is in the northern hemisphere, it will meet Leo, Sekhmet, the Sphinx in Egypt, the Nile area. Then we come to Botus. We need new ideas, new methods, either from hunting to farmer, or an eon-changing lifestyle is occurring again. Maybe we are needing to adapt our way to farm, adapt our way for food, whatever. So there is a time of adaptation, or there is a story of adaptation going on. New technologies that may help us to farm. Then it meets the mother of all life, so the Big Dipper. And then Draco, the remembering of how Earth axis once was. The serpent around the tree of life. The dragon around the cosmic Earth axis. This is a story of creation that is taking place. It is somehow like a new Bible, or a new Mahabharata, or whatever you may say. This is a whole mythology story, a mythological story of a new creation taking place. And if this is occurring like it is trying to say something in the sky, then it is a story about changing that taking place where we need to adapt, like in the time of creation. Or that we are really at the cross, on the threshold of a new area, a new eon. I did not mention it here. I just crossed it like we do not do a projection of a fixed star or a comet towards the ecliptic, because this is bringing the whole sky back. The ecliptic is just a disk in the sky. It's just a small line. So we do not, usually we do not take one point here and measure it on the ecliptic. But if we would, 2014, if we would project, we come to Aquarius, between Aquarius and Capricorn. It will cross, and this is the real important point, it will cross the ecliptic at Leo. So from a horoscope view, it is also the story of Aquarius Leo in a certain way. I asked you to take note of Hydra and crater, the Grail, on top of Hydra. While looking for Tiamat, I found this in Wikipedia. This is the snake Tiamat. This is the Hydra. This is one guy riding the snake of Tiamat, Marduk. This is the crater. And the crater has the upper part of the cup, and here the arms are in the air. So it really looks quite like this, doesn't it? If you take this here, it's an interesting story that's going on. And maybe the stuff with Nibiru isn't also the last translation ever done. So, just to mention this. In my view, a rough overview of what I said, this is the history of our creation and of cyclical renewal. It speaks of ecological changes, the need to adapt, of changes in lifestyle that may be also coming through a wound, intoxicated by wine, too much drunken, of wine not given freely. It is a story about ship to shore. It is a story about needing to sail either on Ark or on Argo, either with all life on board or looking for the golden fleece. But it is a story of a long journey. It is a story. There are stories woven within it of falling, either Phaeton falling to earth, and the tears of the people that mourn him are forming Eridanus, or it is a falling king that is bringing the plow. But the falling king was a hunter king, and now he is a farmer king. So the journey someone or people took was disrupted, and they had to become farmer. or it is a very long cultural changing taking place. Tiamat, the saltwater goddess, was separated from her consort, the sweet water god. So we have the separation of the water going on. And it was the first separation taking place. Sitchin said Nibiru split off, Tiamat became earth. The Bible says, and older stories say, and God separated the sky from earth, the heavens from below. I pondered a little bit on that and wondered, what if the separation of water, the ice of Oort's cloud, is from the time of creation of the solar system? In that case, each comet is an emissionary. Each comet is then part of Nibiru, so to speak, when it comes from that cloud. So it is a reminder of our creation story. I just want to give out that thought. Maybe it's fitting, maybe it's not. Just maybe something to ponder. In this story, we have various forms of turning of the table, the tilting of the earth axis, from hunter to farmer, new methods of living that are needed to develop. But we also have caring for all life. We have the mother of all life, the creation, also major in it. It's going to be an interesting time, isn't it? Especially with the ice caps melting on the pole. And with that, maybe it's just a story in the sky. Maybe it's a story unfolding. You will see. Whatever, take care of you.